Hello guys, welcome to Avina Solutions. So today, today is the class, and it is the one of the most important interview question asked in the trigger concepts. So this is also one of the class. So, what is the best practices for implementing the triggers? So this is the most important concepts every developer can know. So by knowing these concepts, we can easily avoid the governor limits hitting. So before going to practical session, I will give some introduction about what are the best practices to do implementing the triggers. So after that, I'm going to Salesforce arc and I will how to develop, how to implement these best practices in the triggers. So uh, let me open my PowerPoint presentation. So basically, these are the some of the points which are uh, best practices for implementing the triggers. So first best practice is only one trigger for one object. So the every operation, so update, even update, delete, undelete, and insert operation can be done if there is any automation is achieved. If you want to any automation through triggers, we can only implement only one trigger for one object. So why? Because we don't give guarantee this particular trigger can trigger this time. For example, we don't give guarantee to order of execution of triggers. That's why we just follow the one trigger for one object. Why? Because we don't give order of execution of triggers. So triggers don't follow the order of execution. So they have their own system validations, and they have their own properties and rules and regulations for executing triggers. For that, so we don't give guarantee to the order of execution of triggers. That's why we follow the only one trigger for one object. So another one is avoid the complex logic inside the triggers. So if you write so much logic, so let me open my Salesforce arc. So this is the trigger which is I'm already implemented. So literally I'm implementing all the logic, whatever the automation can be achieved in the Salesforce, all the logic is that can be can be programmed inside the trigger only. So this type of complex logic is avoided. Why? Because when I am seeing if there is any chance of getting error in the triggers, if I want to see the trigger, so there is little bit confusion. So where is the logic, I mean in which line or so it is very burden. So for checking the uh, for checking the errors in the triggers, so it's very hardened. So that's why we for implement so we just implement the Apex classes by using the helper classes. We just implement these logic, whatever the logic which is right inside this, we just implement this logic with the help of trigger helper class, and then we can call that helper class into this inside this if conditions. How can we do that? So for that, i'm going to I'm going to create so an helper class. So here I'm passing the trigger.new, means list of which object is contact, list of account. So that's why I am going to create one helper class. So to avoid the logic inside the trigger, I'm going to create one Apex class. Apex class. So the Apex class name is helper or controller class. So I'm literally implementing one method, public static, without creation of object. We just directly call by this method with the use of class name. That's why I'm using the static variable void the method name is create records. So I'm calling this method. So I'm pushing this entire logic, whatever the logic inside this, I'm pushing this logic into this one. So instead of this, I'm this just, so this class is, this method is calling from this trigger. This is a class name, and we just call this method, copy and then paste it. So this method accepts the list of contacts. For the list of contacts, we just pass the trigger dot new context variable. So trigger dot new is nothing but trigger dot new is nothing but list of account. So we are just passing this uh, list of contact account records to this method. So that's why this method must accept the list account and the reference variable ACC list. Instead of using this trigger dot new, we can replace this trigger dot new with the ACC list. Why? Because so trigger dot is new is nothing but this reference variable. That's it. So what are the problems? Helper class. Helper class. Trigger dot new. Just wait. So what are the problems? Just give me 1 minute. So last name, update last name, update last name. The problem is method does not exit or incorrect signature creator records. So to create records, update last name. So update last name helper class unexpected token. So instead of passing this variable, I'm okay. Let me save. So method does not exit a list of SEC list. Void create records. Yes, there is no problem. So we simply pass this whatever data inside this if loop. So we simply pass this data to the Apex helper class. So trigger.new is nothing but list of contacts. Trigger.new map is nothing but list of map of ID comma account object. So trigger.old is nothing but again list of collections, list of accounts, and trigger.old map is nothing but map of ID comma. So I'm writing those context variables meanings. So trigger dot new comma trigger dot old is nothing but list of account for particular object, S object. The trigger the trigger, where can we implemented this trigger on which specific S object? That S object will be written in between these generic. So S object, whether it was a account or whether it was contact, anything it is, list of S object records. Old records plus old or anything. Trigger.new means old new records and trigger.old means old records. So trigger dot new map comma trigger dot old map is nothing but map of id comma s object For example, the s object is here, the s object is account and the s object is account. So in this way, wherever the trigger dot new can be replaced by the list of contacts. So here I'm using the context variables. So trigger dot new and trigger dot old map also. So I'm using the trigger dot new map and trigger dot I'm using the context variables trigger dot new and trigger dot old maps. So I'm pushing this logic inside the helper class. I'm going to create one more Apex logic, Apex helper class. I'm built public static update contact records. So I'm going to push this Apex logic inside the. I'm going to push this trigger logic inside the Apex helper class logic, and then I'm going to. So basically, so here, what are the context variables we are supposed to use? Trigger.new. So I am already told that trigger.new, I'm going to replace the trigger.new with the list of accounts. Here I'm writing this trigger is basically an account object. That's why I'm passing the list of account records. List of accounts and ACC. So I'm replacing this trigger.new with the ACC reference variable. So copy and then paste it. And one more, where can I find the another context variables? Trigger dot old map. So trigger dot old map is nothing but map of id comma map of id comma account object. So reference variable is map of one. So I am replacing this trigger dot old map with the map one reference variable. So that's it. Where can I found s? So right now this method accepts the two collections, two parameters, that is list of accounts and map of id comma account. So that's why I'm going to implement this method, calling this method with the class name this method basically accept the two parameters. One is trigger.new list of contacts, trigger.new and trigger.old map, trigger.old map. That's it. So what is the problem? So static is not allowed on the constructors. So yes, I'm building the public static void. So if we not given void, this looks like a constructor. So it's like a class. That's why it's invalid constructor name method does not exist. Okay. Yeah. Right now there is no problem. I'm going to successfully implement whatever the trigger logic. So there should be only one trigger for each object and avoid the complex logic inside the triggers. So right now I am shifting the what is the logic inside the this trigger. I'm shifted this logic into the Apex class. So whatever the logic is I'm writing inside the trigger, that Apex, that logic is dumped into the Apex helper class, and I'm just calling that Apex class with the class name, and I'm this is the trigger. So it seems to be very simple trigger logic. So if you want to see the logic, just go to the this classic, and what are the logic you want to write it here, you can write it. So second scenario is just satisfied, means avoid complex logic inside the triggers. So we can perform successfully perform the we can just avoid the complex logic inside the triggers. So third one is bulkify the triggers. Bulkify means we can insert more than one record instead of creating. So I'm going to explaining these. So these 2 points, bulkify any helper class. I'm already taking the helper classes, and I will bulkify that code in the in just 2 minutes. So trigger should be bulkified. So what is the meaning of trigger should be bulkified? So the meaning is the trigger should be bulkified meaning is, so let me open my execute anonymous window. Trigger bulkification means I'm going to create contact con equal to new contact. So here I am pushing inserting the only one contact. So the contact required field is last name Avinya Solutions. So the last name is required field, that's why I'm giving the last name. So I'm only performing the one DML operation only. So for example, if I want to insert these record into the Salesforce database, I'm using the insert ACC con. So execute. So execute, what happened? What is the problem? It is not executed. Okay, let me highlight. Okay, anyway, so we have a governor limits for DML 150 exception. If we use 150, so if I want to insert, so for example, here is the scenario like, so the scenario like insert the one record into Salesforce database. So if I want to insert one record into the Salesforce database, this is the exact how can we implement. This is the way how we can implement this insert statement. So we can simply insert one record into the Salesforce database. For example, the scenario like if I want to insert 151 records into Salesforce database, so I'm going to using this insert statement 151 times. If you use these insert statements for 151 if we use these DML statements, it's about 151, there is a chance to hit the governor limits. So how can we implement this without avoiding the governor limits? How can we implement this? So we just bulkify the trigger. How can we bulkify the trigger? So simply I'm going to implement one collection, contact, and the con1 and the con list, new list of contact. So the list collection accepts the data with the bulkification in the bulk records. This list collection accepts the data in the form of bulk. So I'm going to with for instead of using the single DML statement, I am using the, so I am inserting the 151 Salesforce records into the Salesforce database without hitting the governor limits. How can we do that? So if I want to create one more contact con2 equal to new contact last name equal to Laya. So I'm pushing this data into the list collection, con list dot add dot con2. So in this way, if I want to insert 151 records, then so con2 instead of con2, con3 and con3. So up to 150, it's like a it's like a it's like a 150 con 150. So con 150. So what I'm doing recently, so instead of I am using the single DML statements, so this DML if you use insert.con, this will take one DML operation out of 150 for inserting only one record. But here I am inserting the 151 records into the Salesforce database with using the only 1 out of 150. How can we do that? We simply push the data into the list collection. By using the list collection type in Salesforce, we can avoid the governor limits. So if we use the insert this reference variable con list API. So here we perform the only one record. So we can we can use the one DML operation out of 150. So we have a chance to insert the only 151 DML operation for every single transaction. So for inserting only one record, we can use the one DML operations. So this is the not best practice to implement the triggers. So how can we implement? But in the second scenario, we can insert the 151 records by using the list collection. How can we do that? So we simply push the data into the list collection, and we can only use the only one DML statements. So this is also 1 out of 150. So what is the best practice? This is the best practice. So by using the one DML statement, we can insert only one records. By using the only one DML statement, we can insert the 150 records. We are inserted 150 records. So we are insert inserted 150, only one record. By using this list collection, we can bulkify this is trigger. So this is the best practice for implementing the any trigger, and bulkification also, this is the best practices. So after that, so let me execute one more thing. So another is, so trigger should be bulkified. This can be achieved, and avoid the SOQL queries and DMS statements inside the for loops. So what is the exact meaning of this? So for example, if you write this insert statement, for example, if I want to insert 151 records into Salesforce database, and I want to use this insert statement inside this for loop, so this for loop will be iterated over 150 times, and there may be a chance to hit the governor limits. So basically, this for loop iterates is running for the 150 times. So if you use this insert statement trigger the Salesforce database 151 times. So 151 times, if you hit the Salesforce database with the DML operations, so there may be a chance to hit the governor limits. So if you write these statements outside of the for loop, there is a only chance to hitting this DML statements only one time. So this is the best practices. So what is the best practices? So avoid the implementing the DMS statements outside of the for loop, not inside of the for loop, and also avoid the building the SOQL queries inside the for loop. So there is also one more governor limit is there, that is SOQL 100. So if you write SOQL query inside the for loop, so if for suppose the for loop is iterates over 100 times, there may be a chance to hitting the governor limits. So that's why we can avoid this SOQL queries inside the for loop, and also we can write the SOQL queries outside of the for loop. This way we can achieve the trigger best practices. So another one is avoid hard coding IDs. So avoid hard coding means we are not supposed to pass the ID Salesforce ID records inside the parameter. We can, instead of passing the hard coded values, we can pass the IDs dynamically. So this is the best practices for implementing the trigger. Just thank you for watching these videos. If you have faced any problems during this session, please put your comments in the comment section. I will be resolve your doubts if there is any particular doubt. So thank you for watching this video.